I was asked to make a list of some pawisms and maybe post that. Pawism comes from my grandkids call me Pa, so Mark thought instead of idioms, we call them pawisms. So let me see. I had to write a list down. Let me see. The first one was some of the pawisms or the idioms that I use are common enough that everybody they belong to everybody. Some of them are ones that I've said. I think I made them up, and or I didn't hear them anywhere else, so I consider them mine. And if I hear one, I don't mind stealing it from somebody if I hear it. If it makes my point, and that is the whole point of the discussion, right? Is making my point. Um, you should also know I grew up in a small town. It was kind of like the company towns you see about the South or the logging communities, whatever, or the company store. Well, we weren't quite that bad, but nearly. Um, and we lived in a different dimension, I guess. It was the 1950s, all through the 50s, uh, everywhere else in the United States, or most everywhere else. And in our dimension, we had trees and seasons, but we were also in the late 1930s. So the Depression was over and we were going to move on, but slowly. Um, some idioms are vague enough they need some explanation. Others are clear as a bell. Um, and you'll probably get most of these. If you don't get any of them, you're probably in the wrong place. I'm not going to be able to help you. Um, some come directly from country music. There's a lot of wisdom in country music. You know, remember, no matter where you go, there you are. Well, they may be trying to tell you that maybe you're the problem. Um, Another one is here's a nickel. Call somebody who cares. I know the song that came out much later was said here's a quarter. Call somebody who cares. Well, when and where I grew up, local calls were a nickel. So that was my saying. Um, and you know we've all worked with somebody that wasn't pulling their own weight. How's that? We're going to use an idiom to explain an idiom. And let's just call this guy Bill. We were working on a line crew, and all the challenging parts of the job and in parts that were difficult, Bill would kind of back around and he'd be somewhere else. And here, I'll get the hardware for you and whatever. And maybe I was a little too transparent in my expressing his work ethic. So Bill came to me and said, well, I bet you think I'm completely worthless, don't you, Steve? I said, after pausing for most of a half of a second, I said, no, Bill, I don't think anybody's completely worthless. They can always be used as a bad example. Um, and then the other one that kind of irritates me sometimes is some people will go out and they'll lock their car and then they hit the key fob again so it beeps, and they're not sure they heard it, so they hit it again and it beeps, and the whole time it's draining the battery and wearing the switch out, and they'll get in the house and they'll turn the light switch on and they'll change their mind and go back out and turn the light switch off, and they get a glass of milk and they come back in and they turn the light switch back on. And you know, there's only so many swings in a door, and there's only so many clicks in a clicker, and there's only so many clicks in a key fob, so that's probably going to be something I'll have to fix later on. And if I'm talking to you and you ask me a question and I answer it and you get this 1,000-yard stare on, often we'll use my little idiom of pong, the ball's in your court now. In regards to politics, oh, what a wonderful subject that is. I mean, surprised all the writers in Hollywood aren't out of work because the politicians do a great job. My saying about politics is anybody dumb enough to take that job isn't smart enough to do it, and I think they keep proving it to us over and over. My dad said if you take all the politicians and put them in a gunny sack, a burlap sack, shake them up, and then pour them out, they'll all hit the floor at the same time. Pretty sharp guy. Dad also said to me, tighten those head bolts up nice and tight. And I said, well, how tight do you want them? And we didn't have a torque wrench, so you know, he said, well, tighten them up as tight as you can and stop just before they snap. Good instructions. Daddy was always kind of the older guy around and watching somebody else doing something, and it didn't look like it was going to work out. And he would step back a little bit and he'd say to me, watch this. And then you know, he'd move back a little bit and I'd move to get behind him. And he said, you know, what could go wrong? Then another one of his that I've heard repeatedly was, if you think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, you should probably check and see who's paying the water bill. And I have a different version of that one that would probably cost you half a bottle of scotch to hear. My mom said, don't ask a question you don't want to hear the answer to. Daddy said, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. So I think I'll stop there, and we'll make this part 1. Thanks.